Fortunately, I stumbled across a magazine that featured women with large buttocks.
And by stumble across, you mean removed from your sock drawer and brought with you.
This is the Big Bang Theory. You've never seen it, you can't stream it anywhere, but it exists. And it's very, very weird. But more importantly, it's very bad. I've looked at a few unaired pilots for this channel, and this is an entirely different show. And it doesn't work at all, to the point where even after enjoying parts of the pilot, a network required an entire rework of the show pitch. But what this also is an interesting lesson in the realities of traditional TV and how to identify what's wrong with something before it becomes a much bigger issue. So this is a look at what happens when pilots go bad, on why the original version of Penny was fired and replaced, and how one of television's most iconic characters was originally kind of a mess. What you're about to see is a version of The Big Bang that was passed on by every network it was taken to during the 06 pilot season. Oh, and the pilot's a black mark for the network and can only be found in standard def, so that's what you're getting here.
He's just acting on his evolutionary imperative to protect a fertile female in jeopardy.
Oh good, I was afraid it might be something creepy.
This is the original version of Penny in The Big Bang Theory. She is borderline unwatchable in this pilot. The high-level structure here is kind of the same. The guy started the DNA bank, then young woman is alone, meets two nerdy guys, and moves into the building.
What's his problem?
This isn't where we normally sit. We sit at that table over there. That's our table.
Hey, I cannot impose on you guys.
Thank you.
So right up front, we'll just say it's for 3 days. A week tops.
Except here, she comes to stay in the guy's apartment, and the problems start from there. For starters, Katie, who would obviously be turned into Penny in the final show, is just plain mean. In fact, in audience testing, creator Chuck Lorre would later say that the biggest feedback was that audience members wished, and I quote, that the mean lady would stay away from the sweet boys. This version of Penny doesn't care about the guys. She's manipulative, angry, and frankly, unenjoyable to watch. It doesn't help that Amanda Walsh, the actress playing Katie, who is quite good, has absolutely no chemistry with Jim Parsons and Johnny Galecki.
You're asking me to dinner?
Yes.
Why?
And that's a problem when you're going to have your character, who in this pilot, spends a bunch of time making fun of the guys for their inexperience with women. In fact, Penny's presence here plays more like a screen test than a pilot. It doesn't work. Lesson here in casting. You hear about chemistry a lot in film and TV, and probably have a hard time identifying when it works. And that's because it's working. There is chemistry. When you cast actors who don't play well off of each other, especially in sitcoms, however, the timing becomes an issue. Jokes don't land, emotions don't come across, and the easiest way to spot this is actually to watch movies like Alvin and the Chipmunks or Hop, or even Transformers. Watch how detached the actors seem from their CG counterparts, or how much they have to overact to make up for the fact that there's usually nothing but rubber balls in front of them on set, and they're not playing off of anything, and so a lot of things are either flat or incredibly overacted, but mostly flat. If you get the same feeling from characters on a sitcom, that's how you know there's a chemistry issue in casting. When it feels like they could be engaging with rubber balls. When it feels like there isn't a human in front of them. And that's present here. Penny isn't charming or funny, she almost plays like a villain. But she's not the only character that feels off.
We were in costume, of course. He was doing such an effective job of portraying a Vulcan caught up in the pond farm mating fever, I couldn't say no.
Where things really take a turn for this pilot is in just how dramatically they had to change Sheldon Cooper after it. This is a perfect depiction of misunderstanding character. In the original pilot, Sheldon was a mess of ideas, some of which were diametrically opposed to one another. Inconsistency in character. Here, Sheldon is actually kind of a dog. For example, at that donation bank, he says that a magazine with a big behind on it helped him complete his process, and then argues about how totally normal that is. Another character, we'll talk about in a second, talks in the episode about how her and Sheldon's nighttime encounter a while back was filled with roleplay. And when he sees vulnerable Katie on the street, he cares nothing for her, just like the final version of Sheldon. But instead of continuing that indifference, this Sheldon appears to show some physical interest in her? Yeah, that's right, the original version of Big Bang has a Sheldon Cooper that was stifled but much more advanced in one specific department, to the point where Sheldon and Leonard would have been vying potentially for Penny's, and a character we'll get to in a second, romantic attention simultaneously. Why doesn't this work? Well, when you pit two main characters against each other for the affection of a third main character, not only is your conflict too obvious, but once it's resolved once, You split the audience with that decision. Team X or Team X. More importantly here, Sheldon isn't written particularly well. They try to combine social confusion with that kind of physical intent that's only played for comedy, and so you get something that plays, well, like there's just two versions of Leonard. Good cop, bad cop. And written as he is here, when you overtly and immediately give Sheldon physical desire, he plays like a physically frustrated outcast, instead of a guy that simply struggles with communication and human connection. But let's get to that character I keep mentioning.
Let's put our cards on the table, shall we? Right now, Leonard and I are doing research together. It's casual, professional. A couple of months from now, there'll be a transition. Hey, how about a cup of coffee?
There are no Howard and Raj here. The original version of Big Bang didn't have a Howard and Raj. They were created in response to Gilda, this woman right here. You might notice a similarity to someone else once again, but we'll get there. Gilda was the pilot's response to Katie, or original Penny. She was her exact opposite, a take no prisoners, cutest for kids style character that was meant to act as a competing romantic interest for the Leonard and Sheldon of the show. So instead of a group of 5 friends hanging out in an apartment, like the final show would become, a tried and true sitcom trope by the way, what you had was 2 stifled and nerdy 20-somethings competing for the attention of 2 more dominant women. Gilda was an uncomfortable presence in the pilot. She confused a simple storyline, but she's also dry, uninteresting, and a burden to the pace. Both her and Penny are not well-written characters. This 2-guy, 2-girl sitcom style could have only ended one way, but by removing Gilda, keeping and reworking Penny, and adding 2 more guys, they solve that problem. So who is Gilda anyway?
Here because my mother and I have agreed that I will date at least once a year.
Interesting. My mother and I have the same agreement about church.
Well, let's talk about what from this pilot actually ended up making it back in the show, or at least the final pilot. Penny's abandoned and alone storyline obviously would make for the same plot as the final pilot, so would the guys going and starting their day with the donation. Gilda would 3 full seasons into the show later become the template for Amy Farrah Fowler. They're essentially the same character down to their wardrobe and hairstyle. Oh, and the original theme song. Yep, Blinded by Science. So I guess that would change, but hey, still a science-friendly song. Look, The Big Bang Theory is obviously a polarizing show and topic on the internet, but regardless of its quality, it's hard not to appreciate what Chuck Lorre and team accomplished here. They took a risk. They made their own pilot for a show outside of the studio system using their own money, and it was bad. It failed. But instead of being defiant and saying, they just don't get the genius of my thing, or we're just not talking to the right people, if we find them, they'll understand our show, they swallowed their pride, took the feedback, went back to the drawing board, and turned one of television's worst failed pilots into one of the most successful sitcoms in TV history. Whether The Big Bang is for you or not, it is one of the finest examples of course correction in the industry. So if you think your thing sucks, if you're being told that a problem might exist in your work, your writing, your art, take another look at it. The feedback could be wrong, it could be misplaced, but you, the artist, will always be the last person to know for sure. But it's always better to be the last person to find the problem than it is to never find it at all.
Okay, so let me see if I got this. Leonard, Howard, and I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Raj Koothrappali, the Ringo of the Big Bang Theory cast of characters. But the character's third wheel status is certainly not the fault of actor Kunal Nayyar, who did the best he could with the shoddy material he was given week in and week out. The problem with Raj goes beyond just a lack of interest in the character on the part of the writers. They seem to, at times, almost be resentful that they have to include him in the show at all.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes!
I have 3 brothers and 2 sisters, Sheldon. I can do this all day.
First premiering in 2007, The Big Bang Theory was a huge rating success, and while the show certainly had many critics, it's impossible to deny its impact for the majority of its run. The show premiered exactly at the correct time in the cultural zeitgeist as the geek takeover of Hollywood was truly about to begin. With Iron Man marking the start of the MCU and Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight only a year away, a true change in the popular conception of what it meant to be a geek was about to occur. The show's seemingly unstoppable popularity became a perfect illustration of the way geek culture had become mainstream. The show even went as far as to hire scientific consultants to make sure the scientific jargon and mathematical formulas in the set decorations were accurate. However, despite this seeming fealty to the types of people the show is portraying, it can be hard to tell if this series reached such a massive audience in part because it seemed to want to play its comedy both ways. Is the comedy of The Big Bang Theory laughing with the characters, or is the humor meant to be at their expense?
Hey, Sheldon, what do you say we go outside and throw around the old pigskin?
This is a Jewish house. I don't have pigskin.
This apathy towards Raj in particular shows up time and time again, and not only becomes detrimental to the way we feel about him, with his cartoonish mannerisms becoming so unrealistic even for a sitcom, it completely shatters the investment audiences had in him. Despite the show's massive success, it nearly never made it to air in the first place. The show initially had 2 pilots, the first of which only featured Sheldon and Leonard as the primary characters.
How exactly do you get distracted making a sperm deposit? Did you find something more interesting in your pants?
The poor test audience reception of the first pilot led to a general overhaul of the series. The only part of the show that remained the same were the characters of Sheldon and Leonard, who received the most praise from the initial test audience. The reshot version of the pilot recast the role of Penny and added the remaining male leads of Howard and Raj. Bill Prady, the show's co-creator, commented, "The idea was, if they like these first 2 guys, let's give them 2 more." This quote speaks to the fact that Raj and, to a lesser extent, Howard were both afterthoughts in the creation of the series. Raj often feels like a redundancy to the other characters, and once you know his creation came from an attempt to simply give the audience more of what they seem to want, you understand why the character was never given his proper due. In theory, Raj should exist in an important space within the sitcom ecosystem, the scene-stealing side character.
Let me ask you something. Would a passive guy barge in here to look you in the eye and say, "Hey, Duke's Flower, what's up?"
Characters such as Cosmo Kramer, Ned Flanders, or the Fonz himself may not get as much screen time as the central characters, but their comedic energy brings something to the table that keeps the audiences laughing.
I sure like the cut of your gibberish.
Cohen doodly
Diddly
diddly.
oodly. Diddly oodly.
Pickadoodly.
Loony oodly.
Noodly doodly diddly doodly. Shut the diddly daddler Ratner.
Beyblade.
While these characters often can't carry a show entirely on their own, they are vital to expanding the world within a sitcom while also injecting fresh comedic takes into each scene. Instead, Raj exists as a human punching bag. He is often portrayed as being the butt of the jokes rather than the source of genuine comedy. His primary running gag for the show's first 6 seasons was to suddenly become unable to speak whenever a woman was nearby, unless he was intoxicated.
Bachelor and the next I'm married and driving a minivan to Pee Wee cricket matches in suburban New Delhi.
Are you talking to me?
Is there another Penny here?
This would lead to gags where Raj is completely left out of plans due to his inability to speak. Jokes that feel needlessly mean-spirited in a show that doesn't really have that sort of tone. This is to say nothing of the frequent jokes at the expense of Raj about his cultural identity, suggesting Sheldon has more knowledge about Hindu language than he does.
If you really want to challenge yourself, you could learn to speak Hindi.
Punjab mein ab saakata, minaye sikata.
Did you see that in English? I never learned Hindi.
All of these gags serve as characters like Sheldon, but it constantly feels like punching down on a character that doesn't really deserve that treatment. Raj's inability to speak to women finally started to change at the end of the show's 6th season. Producer Steve Malero commented on the change, saying, "It's not the greatest situation to have a character who can only speak to women with alcohol in his hand," which only further highlights just how inconsequential the writers must have seen Raj if it took them over 135 episodes to realize their error. The moment of Raj's cure feels somewhat unsatisfying. After being dumped by his girlfriend, Lucy, in the season 6 finale, Raj is out of the blue, suddenly able to talk to women again.
It's just the booze talking.
No, it's not. I haven't had a drink since last night.
There really isn't a lesson learned for a moment of growth. He simply seemed to get over it. Once the writers freed Raj of his selective mutism, the character was able to be actively involved in the same type of romantic hijinks as the rest of the show's characters. Raj has a few distinct relationships that finally give him at least some semblance of a plotline within the show. Unfortunately, the character feels as if he's playing catch-up with the established relationships of the show at this point. any long-term romantic prospects for Raj typically end in failure. Perhaps the most insulting version of this comes in the final season, where Raj enters a relationship with Anu, an ambitious woman who actually proposes to Raj. She seems like she would be the logical in-game relationship for him. They challenge each other in ways that make both characters more compelling, and this ultimately helps Raj to grow after being stagnant for most of the show's run. This, however, is ultimately undone in episode 22 of season 12, where Anu gets a dream job in London and Raj initially agrees to move.
They offered me a management position.
That's amazing. That's your dream.
It's here in London.
Oh.
He is then convinced to stay by Howard and breaks off the engagement completely. Raj is, once again, made into an accessory to the friend group rather than being made into a character with his own sense of agency. His romance ends with a whimper and a half-hearted explanation that his friends matter more than his relationship with Anu. This need to keep Raj in America rather than allowing him to be his own person feels like an even worse evolution of the constant insults the character received in the earlier seasons of the show. Showrunner Steve Holland explained the decision as Anu started to feel like the person you didn't want to see Raj end up with. You want Raj to have that sort of fairy tale romance that he's dreamed about all these years, which is a perfectly fine perspective to have, but the writers made no effort to set up any tension in the relationship between Anu and Raj to make Raj's decision to stay feel satisfying. And there was certainly no attempt to give Raj that fairy tale ending, since the breakup happened in the final episodes of the show's last season. While improvements were certainly made in giving Raj the ability to actually speak to women, Raj is the only central character who doesn't get a satisfying romantic conclusion. Sitcoms like The Big Bang Theory are often bolstered by iconic performances from these side characters, to the point where it's the side characters who are often remembered even more than the central ones. As it is, the entire show is left with a Raj-sized hole where audiences are left wondering why they became invested in the character's journey in the first place. If the writers don't seem to be invested in the character, why should the audiences?
What are you studying?
Microbiology?
Oh, cool. So you could study me.
I don't understand.
That was the first time Howard Wolowitz met Bernadette Rostenkowski, and if you're a fan of The Big Bang Theory, then you already know that despite this inauspicious start, their relationship was going the distance. They would move in together, get married, have kids, the whole deal, but it wasn't always supposed to be that way. In fact, Melissa Rauch's Bernadette was never really meant to be more than a single episode guest star. Of course, that was before they realized she was going to solve the Big Bang's biggest problem.
I couldn't ride a bicycle because my mother was afraid I'd hit a bump and lose my virginity.
Oh, wow. You didn't, did you?
Not on a bicycle.
The Big Bang Theory debuted on September 24th, 2007.
Oh, hi.
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 But if you watched our video about the very weird version of Big Bang Theory you never saw, then you already know the original pilot for the hit series was extremely different from the show we're used to seeing. Sensing potential but not fully satisfied with the version they had, CBS ordered the series to be retooled, which primarily entailed replacing the original female lead, Katie, with the now familiar Penny. But noting that the most positively received element of the original pilot was the dynamic between Sheldon and Leonard, co-creators Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady decided to add two more friends to their nerdy circle, Raj and Howard. Like Sheldon and Leonard, Raj and Howard were brainy scientist types. Played by Simon Helberg, Howard is an aerospace engineer and MIT grad who trains to be an astronaut and actually goes to space. But unlike the other three, Howard is, to put it kindly, incredibly aggressive with women. To put it less kindly, he's a sleazy sexist pervert and serial sexual harasser that would never make it onto television in a post-Me Too world.
More precisely, we used your loofah. I exfoliated her brains out.
Some of Howard's creepier antics include things like stalking the cast of America's Top Model with hacked military technology, allowing a female friend to get beaten up because he was horny to see a cat fight, and hiding a webcam inside a teddy bear he gave Penny as a gift so he could spy on her. And that's really just the tip of the cringe-inducing iceberg. Of course, the other three guys on the show also behaved badly at times too, but Howard was the worst regular offender by far. Like How I Met Your Mother's Barney Stinson, he was an unrepentant horny guy trope that had been a fairly common staple on sitcoms, going at least back to Sam Malone on Cheers.
All I can think about is getting home and jumping into bed.
Need anybody to break your fall?
But with times changing, Howard attracted criticism right from the start, including occasional calls for him to be removed from the show, and even Helberg didn't defend the character against the backlash he generated, later explaining, people were very unhappy with some of the things Howard would do or say, and I was like, yeah, I agree. But although it wasn't really evident so early in its run, The Big Bang Theory was going to be the kind of series that allowed characters to evolve. And the evolution of Howard would begin with the arrival of Bernadette in Season 3, Episode 5, The Creepy Candy Coating Corollary. Bernadette worked with Penny as a waitress at the Cheesecake Factory while paying her way through grad school to become a microbiologist. Penny sets her up on a date with Howard at Leonard's request, and right from the start, the date goes badly.
You like magic?
Not really.
Okay.
Howard spends most of it searching for an interest the two have in common, while Bernadette casually shoots down everything he can think of, from role-playing games to puppies. But later on in the night, the two wind up bonding over the surprise realization that both have ridiculously domineering mothers. And by the time it's over, the date is a genuine success.
It's a date.
Am I a matchmaker or what?
Bernadette reappears 4 episodes later, and we learn that by that point, they're already on their 3rd date. The truth is, though, Bernadette was never meant to reappear at all. In fact, the episode was so unconcerned with the audience remembering her character that her name is never even spoken out loud, appearing only in the closing credits. Roush would later confirm, I was just supposed to be there for a week, and they said I was gonna do a couple more episodes. It's easy to guess why. From their very first moments on screen together, it's obvious that Roush and Helberg have real comic chemistry as performers. And from a character perspective, Bernadette immediately proves to be a perfect foil for Howard's worst qualities. Her natural ability to keep him perpetually flummoxed immediately changes his vibe from aggressively sleazy to harmlessly neurotic.
Gals, chicks, Euro-Americans.
Just eat your dinner.
Don't take him too seriously. A lot of what he says is intended as humor.
We never doubt that she has the upper hand, and we're not worried about her, even though we know he's basically slime. At the same time, there's a sweetness to it all. Bernadette's refusal to pander to Howard by feigning an interest in any of the stuff he brings up makes it feel truly meaningful when they finally connect over something real, and it's hard not to be charmed by their weird bond.
Howard, a girl doesn't go out with a man like you with your looks, your fancy patter, and your tight hoochie pants if she's not expecting him to eventually make the move.
Now, given Howard's controversial status among viewers, it would be easy to believe that the producers were deliberately trying to set him on a new course by introducing this new love interest. But Prady is adamant that Laurie avoided such planning ahead whenever possible and almost never wrote the show with long-term arcs in mind. In fact, Prady explains the addition of both Bernadette and Mayim Bialik's Amy Farrah Fowler as just being natural outcomes of the day-to-day storytelling, saying the characters added themselves by virtue of what the other characters thought of them. So there was never a master plan, there was never a design. But purposeful or not, the producers apparently recognized the opportunity they had created for themselves pretty quickly, and immediately went all in on using Bernadette to rehabilitate their most problematic character. In just her second appearance, she asks Howard for a commitment before they sleep together.
I need to know whether you're looking for a relationship or a one-night stand.
Okay, just to be clear, there's only one correct answer, right?
By the time the episode is over, he's in a stable relationship with a strong, smart woman that knows how to handle him. Roush, who would quickly develop her character's now iconic high-pitched voice based on her own mother's voice, would appear in 5 more episodes of Season 3. In that time, Bernadette's status as Penny's co-worker at the restaurant would give her the chance to share the screen with the rest of the show's main cast. Her comedic chemistry was just as good with all of them as it was with Helberg, and she would be promoted to a full series regular in Season 4. Smart, bossy, and funny, Bernadette would turn out to be a surprisingly layered character. Her typically nurturing and kind exterior combined with her diminutive height and funny voice obscured the fact that underneath, she was a fiercely determined leader and competitor who took no crap from anyone.
Going to roll up this newspaper.
It's a fake picture. You got wax in your ears? The man said it's an ordinary picture.
She was also capable of dropping a devastating comeback when the situation demanded.
You jerk face! What did you tell Howard? Did you say there was something going on between us? Because he thinks there there is! He's completely freaking out!
And it made her one of the show's most consistently funny regulars. Despite being the ensemble member who was at the center of the least number of storylines, it's almost impossible to imagine how the series would have gone without her. She would grow into a friend for Penny, Leonard, and Amy, a secret love interest for Raj, and something of an occasional substitute parental figure for Sheldon. And while it's true she could be something of a bully with her friends, and was often a little too harsh on them, she was also a fiercely protective guardian of the group, always willing to defend them against outsiders or each other.
You better find my husband's mother, because one way or another, we're walking out of this airport with a dead woman.
Of course, her primary role would always revolve around her relationship with Howard. Her involvement in his life forces him to put his aspiring playboy days behind him, and for the rest of the series, most of Howard's stories are about their very traditional romance, their surprisingly wholesome marriage, and their love for their children. It's a pretty drastic change. That being said, Howard doesn't change overnight. Some of his creepiest moments come after the introduction of his bride-to-be. For example, there was the time he digitally cheated on Bernadette after having cybersex with another woman inside World of Warcraft while Bernadette was in the next room. And while they do eventually get beyond the whole thing, a lot of fans never forgave Howard for the betrayal. But stumbles aside, right from Bernadette's arrival, Howard was on an overall trajectory of being a better man. Helberg, for the record, was grateful for the change, later recalling, "It certainly was more fun to play him as his heart got bigger and he shed his layer of sleaze." And that's easy to believe because, from a viewership perspective, it was a lot more fun to watch Howard after that too. The addition of Bernadette fixed the Howard problem and gave the show one of its most memorable characters in one fell swoop. That's some real genius right there.
My mother always told me one should wear clean underpants in case one is in an accident.
One was already in an accident.
It doesn't mean one won't be in another, especially if I'm driving.
The adhesive duct deficiency wasn't a premiere or a finale, it didn't introduce any important new characters, and it didn't have any special guest stars. It was just a run-of-the-mill installment in which Sheldon helps Penny get to a hospital after she slips in the bathtub, while Leonard, Howard, and Raj get stoned in the desert. But despite the fact that even the writers and producers probably didn't realize it at the time, the adhesive duct deficiency was the perfect episode of The Big Bang Theory.
Right, that was so good! Sweetie and meaty at the same time.
Debuting on CBS September 24th, 2007, The Big Bang Theory was an ensemble sitcom that mostly focused on Caltech physicists and roommates Leonard Hofstadter and Sheldon Cooper. Their lives begin to slowly change after Leonard falls in love with Penny, an aspiring actress who moves into the apartment across the hall. Along with the friendship between Sheldon, Leonard, and their co-workers Howard and Raj, Leonard and Penny's romance was one of the central threads of the whole series. But these days, if you ask most fans what the strongest and most interesting relationship on the show was, they'll probably tell you it was the unlikely friendship between Sheldon and Penny. We say unlikely because the two characters are about as different from each other as they could possibly be.
I was wondering if you could maybe teach me a little physics.
A little physics?
Sheldon is the nerdiest nerd on a show featuring 4 world-class scientists. He's socially inept in the extreme and only cares about science and science fiction. 2 things Penny has 0 interest in, and Penny, on the other hand, is a party animal. She's the most socially adept character on the show, and her interests include things like her clothes, her love life, and her acting career, none of which Sheldon seems to have the slightest understanding of. Naturally, those differences put the characters at odds, and right from the start, they love to make wisecracks at each other's expense.
Ooh, I thought I smelled pizza.
That's remarkable. If pepperoni were an explosive substance, you could replace German shepherds at our nation's airports.
Despite that, a friendship between the two also begins to emerge, producing some of the most memorable moments of the show's first 2 seasons. Those moments include, for example, the iconic scene in Season 1's The Pancake Batter Anomaly, in which a sick Sheldon convinced a reluctant Penny to sing Soft Kitty to him while she put Vapo Rub on his chest. But it wouldn't really be until the 8th episode of the 3rd season, The Adhesive Duct Deficiency, that the full potential of Sheldon and Penny's odd couple-like pairing would truly become clear. The episode begins with Leonard, Howard, and Raj camping in the desert so that they can observe a meteor shower. Sheldon isn't with them, but likely due to his stubborn and headstrong personality, they don't seem all too upset about it.
Too bad Sheldon couldn't come with us.
Yeah, it's just not the same without him.
Meanwhile, back at home, Sheldon hears Penny calling for help from her apartment. He dashes over only to discover that she slipped in the shower and dislocated her shoulder. She needs his assistance to get up, get dressed, and get to the hospital. And right from the start, it's clear that Sheldon is the absolute wrong man for the job. Despite her literally screaming for help, he stops at every door along the way, the apartment door, her bedroom door, and the bathroom door, to knock and wait for permission to enter. And as she lays on the floor of the tub, clearly in pain, he stands cluelessly in the doorway explaining why tubs are slippery and how he has adhesive duck stickers on the floor of his own tub to prevent such accidents.
They're whimsical because ducks have neither a need for nor the ability to use umbrellas.
Those ducks are obviously the source of the episode's title, and Penny's failure to have something like them could certainly be characterized as a deficiency. But as the episode will soon make apparent, the real adhesive duct deficiency is the same thing that made Leonard, Howard, and Raj glad to be away from Sheldon for a while. Namely, his inability to function in the world as most other people do. And from the moment he arrives in Penny's bathroom, Sheldon's complete inability to read social cues is on sharp display. When Penny moans in agony, he obliviously babbles about his shower ducts, and when she needs help getting clothing out of her dresser, he comments on the lack of organization in her underwear drawer.
I see no organizational system in here whatsoever. Which panties do you wear on Mondays?
In the car, Sheldon makes her wait in frustration as he meticulously adjusts a mirror, only to have to start again after moving his seat forward. And on the drive over, he ignores her pleas to go faster while rudely lecturing her about the dangers of ignoring her check engine light, Spock's job on the Enterprise, and how the Chinese character she has tattooed on her back doesn't mean what she thinks it does. Finally, at the hospital, Sheldon tries to help Penny fill out her admission forms, but only succeeds in wearing her out. She begs him to stop being his obtuse self for a moment and at least try to comfort her, but Sheldon has no idea how to do that. The best he can muster is to creepily tell her, "Everything's going to be fine, Sheldon's here," while awkwardly trying and failing to find a way to make physical contact with her in a comforting way.
Thanks, that's much better.
Ultimately, the two wind up back at home, where Penny, high on painkillers, asks Sheldon to tuck her into bed. Drug-addled though she may be, she gives him one last chance to come through by prompting him to sing Soft Kitty for her. He's reluctant at first, but finally gives her what she wants. By the time the song is over, she's beaming at him, having at least been provided with a modicum of sincere human warmth. It's an incredible moment because the pancake batter anomaly established that Sheldon's mother used to sing Soft Kitty to him when he was sick. Penny, a character of high emotional intelligence, eventually realizes it's the only way of comforting another person that Sheldon truly understands, and her delight at being able to teach him how to care for her the way she did for him when he was sick is obvious. It's a lesson only she alone could have taught him, and it proves the same qualities that make Sheldon and Penny opposites also make them ideal friends.
Soft kitty, warm kitty, little ball of fur.
I've got all night, Sheldon.
The adhesive duct deficiency contains some of the series' best writing and funniest jokes, and even Leonard, Howard, and Raj benefit from the story, which allows them to briefly step outside of Sheldon's larger-than-life shadow and just be goofy as a trio. It's also the episode where Parsons and Cuoco proved they had some of the best comedic chemistry on the show. In fact, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that almost any episode where they spend an extended amount of time on screen together is pretty much guaranteed to be hilarious. Season 7's The Scavenger Vortex, which finds them working together to win a scavenger hunt, being a prime example.
What are you doing? You have to start with the edges.
Well, there's no right way, Sheldon. I already found a few pieces that fit.
Yeah, well, take them apart and start with the edges.
But what truly makes the adhesive duct deficiency perfect is what it does for Sheldon and Penny's respective characters and their relationship. The breakthrough she helps him make is his first meaningful growth in the series up until that point, and it confirms his obnoxious behavior isn't malicious, but rather genuinely rooted in an inability to understand how to behave. At the same time, the mere fact that she kept looking for his human side and refused to just write him off as a jerk establishes she's not as indifferent to him as she often seems.
Then it's like that movie WALL-E at the end. You're so full of love, and you can save a plant and get fat people out of the floaty chairs.
That may be why going forward in the series, Penny becomes something of a big sister to Sheldon. Future episodes find her fiercely protecting him from those who don't understand him as well as himself. And when it comes to the trials of day-to-day living, she'll be there for him more consistently than any of the rest of his friend group. This is rarely exemplified better than in Season 9's The Celebration Experimentation, which finds Penny coaxing an overwhelmed Sheldon out of the bathroom at his star-studded birthday party.
If what you need is to spend your birthday in a bathroom, I'm happy to do it with you.
Everyone will think I'm weird.
Similarly, Sheldon always attempts to care for Penny when she seems like she needs it. Granted, it comes up a lot less frequently on the show, and his efforts often come off as condescending, but episodes like Season 7's The Occupation Recalibration, which finds Sheldon supporting Penny's decision to quit her day job and fully pursue her dream of acting, a decision Leonard couldn't seem to understand, proves Sheldon truly cares about her. As a direct result of the character and relationship building that starts in the adhesive duct deficiency, Sheldon and Penny eventually grow into the kind of close friends who tell each other secrets they don't even tell their spouses. Their bond is never depicted as anything other than platonic, but it's so strong and emotionally intimate. Both of their respective romantic partners do, at various times, have difficulty understanding it.
I've decided to take your advice and have arranged to go on a date with Amy Farrah Fowler.
Oh, that's great. Have fun.
Wait. You have to drive me.
What?
It's the kind of complex relationship you don't see on a lot of sitcoms, and that's kind of the point. The friendship between Leonard, Sheldon, Howard, and Raj was definitely fun, and Leonard and Penny's romance was no doubt well executed, but those relationships are both fairly standard to the form. The friendship between Sheldon and Penny, on the other hand, was something totally unique to The Big Bang Theory. That's why everyone still remembers it today, and why the episode that defined it was absolutely perfect.
Oh, I cannot believe a pipe burst and left that there.
There's no burst pipe.
How do you know that? What is it then? Hey guys, somebody making soup?
Television and comedy might just be the best combo of all time. Because whether you're sacked out on the couch after a long day or catching up on the latest episode with your loved ones, nothing beats a good laugh. But these days, televised comedy often comes with a fair share of baggage. Emotionally charged, overtly subversive, and sometimes shockingly violent, this current wave of modern programming feels downright serious. So what exactly happened to the laugh tracks and easygoing sitcoms of yesteryear?
That's funny! That's weird because the situation really isn't funny.
I know, but the laughing tells me that it's funny.
They have timing, man. They have timing for sure.
For 75 years and running, the Emmy Awards have served to honor the achievements of television's brightest stars. And as testament to humor's importance on the small screen, the Academy of Television Arts created a comedy-specific Emmys category within 4 years of its inception. With such long-standing critiques of televised humor and the universal appeal of comedy, you might assume television arts voters could do no wrong. But in fact, the Primetime Emmy Award for Best Comedy Series has become the most controversial category in the Academy's history. And while it is easy to pass the blame on Emmy voters, the treble nominee lists speak more to the sorry state of television comedies at large. When the Academy released its list of nominees for the 2024 Outstanding Comedy Award, it was impossible not to notice some major changes. Of the 8 televised comedies nominated, one show stood out like a sore thumb. Because in a sea of profanity-laden HBO shows, genre-based anomalies, and impassioned social statements, only one sitcom remained.
Abbott Elementary, make some noise!
The sitcom, or situational comedy, is a specific genre that relies on a set location and a reoccurring cast of characters. Unlike the frantic nature of sketch comedies, sitcoms offer audiences a chance to relate to laughable characters and familiar settings. And although the first televised sitcom, 1946's Penrite's Progress, was produced across the pond, American sitcoms came to prominence shortly after. Abbott Elementary might not feature a laugh track, but in today's world of heavy-handed humorists and grim grinning gangsters, the ABC mockumentary is as old school as it gets. Show creator and star Quinta Brunson's characterization of an underfunded school in a major metro isn't without its tough moments, but opposed to the anxiety-riddled dramatics of The Bear, Abbott Elementary feels utterly quaint.
Oh, you work at the school district?
Yeah.
Oh, you know that these schools are criminally underfunded.
Yeah. I'm working on it. Let's just take the picture.
Okay.
Prior to the Emmy's most recent spat of serious situationals, easygoing sitcoms like Abbott Elementary reigned supreme. Throughout the 1950s, I Love Lucy dominated the category with double wins and multiple nominations. Then in the 60s, Bob Newhart, Andy Griffith, and Dick Van Dyke stole the silver sets. By the 70s, Mary Tyler Moore and All in the Family had taken the lead, and through the 80s and 90s, and up in the aughts, the American sitcom seemed unstoppable.
USA! USA!
USA!
It's easy to look at the 2024 Emmy nominations as a sign of drastic change, but in fact, this onslaught of dark TV comedies has been more of like a slow trickle of gallows humor and poignant tales. As mentioned, All in the Family was a major force in 1970s TV comedies. In fact, it was nominated for an Emmy every year of its 9-season run, ultimately winning 4 of those awards. All in the Family was a hilarious classic sitcom, complete with the then requisite laugh track.
May I know what we're having for supper tonight? Nothing!
But lurking beneath the one-liners and celebrated cast of the Bunker household, some truly edgy material was at hand, with plot lines centered on topics ranging from racism, the Vietnam War, and differing lifestyles. All in the Family spoke directly to an audience grappling with these same challenges. It is impossible to fairly compare a decades-old sitcom like All in the Family to a modern comedy like Abbott Elementary, but subject matter and societal norms aside, you can see a through line from one to the next in terms of what audiences expect from their televised comedy. Laughter with a heartbeat.
Oh my God, what did he just say to you? That if you don't do well, you're gonna get fired? Worse. He mumbled and I didn't hear it.
And when we look back on the staying power of All in the Family, that serious streak so common today is highly evident. Take for example the 8th season 2-part special, Edith's 50th Birthday, in which the Bunker family faces a truly devastating crime. These highly acclaimed episodes serve as a reminder that All in the Family pushed the envelope in ways that we're still reckoning with today, and it leads one to wonder if even a bright spot like Abbott Elementary can go the same distance. Because how do you grapple with dark nature of humanity while still being, well, funny?
Did you hear this over here? Draft dodger, fugitive from justice, you know? FBI. How'd you like the FBI to come and have dinner with you here?
Oh, Archie, we ain't got enough turkey for that.
Also dealing with mature concepts in the yesteryear of sitcoms, MASH revolutionized TV. Featuring a Korean War setting and a cast of kooky field medics, the CBS comedy was a major hit with audiences and the Academy alike. In its accomplished 11-year run, MASH received a staggering amount of nominations and 14 wins. And for a show that relied on extremely heavy themes, it seemed audiences craved intensity. But looking ahead to the winners and nominees of today, it's clear that if anything has changed for the worse, it's that classic sense of restraint. When you take a show like MASH, set it in a war-torn community, themes like loss and untimely death are a given, and MASH handles those themes with the care and grace of a surgeon.
War isn't hell. War is war and hell is hell, and of the two, war is a lot worse.
As if to say, we know you came here for laughs, so we'll save the grisly stuff for off-screen. 2024 Emmy comedy winner Hacks, on the other hand, chose to handle its heavy scenes, well, a little differently. Set in the world of stand-up comedy and the inner lives of celebrities, often oversteps into harsher vibes. It's easy to replace the grim truths of life with shock and awe, and as writers grow up on adult-minded content like MASH, the lines between comedy and violence seem to blur. But Hacks is certainly no exception to the sensational nature of modern television. Though there have always been campy and ridiculous Emmy nominees, What We Do in the Shadows takes the cake. With a similar mockumentary sitcom vibe to Abbott Elementary, What We Do in the Shadows brings subversion to drastic heights.
He's my pal. He's my homeboy, my rotten soldier. He's my sweet cheese, my good time boy.
And while critically lauded comedies of the supernatural persuasion have long existed, just take a peek at 1968 Emmy nominee The Ghost of Mrs. Muir. What We Do in the Shadows' bloodline flows firmly in the veins of horror. Just a few decades ago, sitcom mockumentaries like Abbott and Shadows completely took over the Emmys. Beginning with an American take on BBC's The Office, NBC were pioneers in the burgeoning genre. The network soon followed up on their Emmy-winning series with Parks and Recreation, another critical darling. HBO even took a swing at this new breed of workplace comedies with the multiple Emmy-winning Veep.
Sue, did the president call? No.
And although the exploits of its familiar sitcom star are adult and highly political in nature, Veep honored the comedy comes first formula of its predecessors.
Well, go yourself, long, tall Sally.
But none of these faux doc comedy series came close to the righteous rule from competitor ABC, because when Modern Family hit the scene, both the Academy and viewers had found their new critical darling. With 5 consecutive wins, Modern Family remains tied with Frasier for the most Emmys in the comedy category. But eventually, the tides began to turn. In the midst of the sitcom mockumentary award blitz, a new strain of televised comedy began to appear. With the emergence of streamers like Netflix and Amazon Prime, time, starkly adult comedies became a fascination for subscribers. With high ratings and an emphasis on emotional cores, shows like Orange is the New Black, Master of None, and Transparent started receiving Emmy nods almost immediately. But it was perhaps in 2018 that televised comedy truly took a major plunge into uncharted waters. Nominees like Blackish, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and even Silicon Valley bore striking resemblance to Emmy nods of old. But the high-flying drama of Glow, the stylish realities of Atlanta, and the extreme violence of Barry were an entirely new reality. Ultimately, Amazon Prime's The Marvelous Miss Maisel took home the prize in 2018, but even this semi-biographical take on the life of a comedian served more drama than laughs. And those dramatics are certainly not without precedent in the world of televised comedy. Long before The Big Bang Theory became the last award-winning comedy series with a laugh track, The Wonder Years charmed voters and viewers with a muted, realistic approach to coming-of-age stories. Although it is highly stylized and cerebral, 2024's Reservation Dogs might be the closest analog to emotionally punctuated comedies like The Wonder Years. It's far too surreal and pointed to serve as any real reminder of dramedies past. While it is true that bona fide comedy shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm still court the Emmys on occasion, TV's gang of most outrageous cut-ups have been left out in the cold for over a decade. As the longest-running sitcom in American history, It's Always Sunny has provided more laughs and garnered more fans than most shows could ever dream of. But with 0 Emmy nominations and running, it's even more canon to the show's lore.
I mean, I guess it is us, after all, you know? It's us.
Right, it's us.
Screw them. You know why? Because I like us.
We can always hold out hope that It's Always Sunny receives its dues one day, and award nominations for the recently deceased Curb Your Enthusiasm are a kind gesture toward genuine comedy, but these low drama highlights are legacy shows developed during the prime of network sitcoms, a time that seems long behind us. At this point, many are left to wonder what it takes to get an out-and-out comedy developed for television. But perhaps the real issue lies in an evolution of taste. Standardized sitcoms do still exist, but it seems we have moved past their simple pleasures. Laugh tracks are still laid down beside reboots and revamps of classic sitcoms, but who's really thinking about them? Maybe the writer's room of modern comedy aren't seeking the same audience as a Frasier or a Seinfeld. And to prospective Emmy voters, there is perhaps a desire to showcase stories that contain quality narratives over incessant jokes. With more high-profile TV dramas than ever, maybe we've just run out of places to put lightly funny, super serious programs. Whatever the reason for the decline of lauded TV comedies, one thing is crystal clear. Audiences miss the laughs. And whether through the retro gaze of a standardized sitcom or some new hybridized genre, we all hope for the return of a good old-fashioned joke.
I really wanted an award, though.
I was dying for one.
Ah, it was so nice.
Would have meant a lot.
I can't believe we're actually married.
It's official. According to tradition, we should hang the bed sheets outside so the villagers can see that we consummated.
That's how the 12th season of The Big Bang Theory began. By that point, the show already had more than 250 episodes under its belt, but it was still so popular that CBS offered to renew it for at least 2 more seasons.
Oh, great.
Great.
It was a level of success beyond the wildest dreams of most TV actors and producers. You would think plowing ahead with the beloved series would be a no-brainer, but if you're a fan, then you already know that's not what happened. Instead of going another 2 seasons, The Big Bang went boom.
I am proud to say we have the stars from the biggest, bangiest comedy on television. Their series finale aired tonight after 12 seasons.
Debuting on CBS in September of 2007, The Big Bang Theory followed the lives of Caltech physicists / roommates Sheldon Cooper and Leonard Hofstadter, played by Jim Parsons and Johnny Galecki, as well as their neighbor Penny, played by Kaylee Cuoco. Co-created by Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady, the show quickly became a massive hit and made huge stars out of its cast, particularly Parsons, who was awarded the Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series 4 times for his performance as Sheldon.
And I already achieved more than most of you could ever hope to, despite my 9 o'clock bedtime.
Of course, the vast majority of sitcoms tail off in popularity over time, but The Big Bang remained so popular for so long that even a full decade after its debut, it was still enough of a powerhouse to spawn the hit spin-off Young Sheldon, which later spawned another spin-off, George and Mandy's First Marriage. And that's why it was so surprising when it was announced in August of 2018 that the show's 12th season would be its last. Those announcements didn't make it clear why the show was coming to an end, and as we alluded to earlier, earlier, behind the scenes, the network wasn't exactly thrilled to see it go. They wanted at least 2 more seasons, and so did showrunner Chuck Lorre, as well as most of the cast. But in January of 2019, about 5 months before the series finale would air, Parsons informed the media that the decision to end the show was made because at the beginning of season 12, he informed the writers and producers that he was ready to move on. At the time, Parsons said it didn't seem to him like there was anything left on the table, creatively speaking. In his words, not that we couldn't keep going, but it feels like we've chewed all the meat off this bone. And given that the 12th season would bring the series episode count to 279, making it the single longest running multi-camera series in television history, it's not hard to see his point. Parsons also indicated that he was concerned he was getting too old to convincingly play the character, and he wasn't sure how much longer he could wear Sheldon's t-shirts without appearing long in the tooth.
What the hell is wrong with you?
I'm the Flash. I just knocked 30,000 times.
So when conversations about a 13th season began, Parsons knew he had to act. In an interview given the day before the final episode aired, he said, "It was the first time in my life of doing this show that I might want to not do another contract after 12 was up." In 2020, however, Parsons spoke with Doctor Who actor David Tennant on his podcast and admitted that he already sensed his time on the show was coming to an end when he signed his final 2-year contract renewal at the end of season 10. And there were a number of reasons he felt that way. The show really began with the filming of its original unaired pilot in 2006. Sheldon and Leonard are the only familiar characters to appear in that version, but that means by 2019, Parsons had actually been playing Sheldon for 13 years, and he was ready to try new things as an actor. That ambition is reflected in his resume during the last few seasons of the show, which includes appearances in the 2015 Broadway play An Act of God, as well as the hit 2018 revival of The Boys in the Band. He also made a supporting appearance in the 2016 film Hidden Figures and played a lead role in 2018's A Kid Like Jake. According to Parsons, he began to feel overwhelmed. Working on a sitcom is incredibly time-consuming, and shooting 24 episodes of Big Bang a season while managing his other projects and commitments had left him feeling exhausted.
Are you saying that because the things are unspeakable?
It also left him with little to no time to spend with his husband, art director Todd Spiewak. Not helping matters was the declining health of the 14-year-old dog Parsons shared with Spiewak. The actor began to resent the fact that he had to rush off to shoot commercials when he'd rather be with his ailing pet. Then one night during a performance of The Boys in the Band, Parsons slipped and broke his foot while taking a curtain call. And with that, he had reached his breaking point. According to Parsons, "I felt like I was at the edge of a cliff. I was teetering and saw something really dark below. The whirlwind of emotional events caused the actor to rethink the pace of his life." Parsons told Tennant that he realized his father had died at 52, just 6 years older than Parsons himself was during Big Bang's 12th season. The macabre realization gave him a moment of clarity, and he decided the time had come to slow down and take the time to enjoy his life. All that, in turn, led Parsons to finally inform Lorre that he would be leaving the show. Lorre, for his part, was reportedly shocked by the revelation. The series employed hundreds of people, and if it came to an end, all those folks would soon find themselves without a job. Parsons believed the show could continue on without him, but if you were a fan of The Office, you may not agree with his optimism. That series made the choice to continue on even after the departure of Steve Carell's Michael Scott. Michael, however, was the main character around which the whole show was constructed, and Carell was its biggest star, so critics and audiences were understandably skeptical, and that skepticism would turn out to be 100% justified.
I declare bankruptcy!
Producers brought in some heavy-duty talent to fill in the void left by Michael Scott, but it didn't really work, and the series noticeably dipped in quality. Similarly, Sheldon had long since become the central breakout character of The Big Bang Theory, and it was on that basis that both Lorre and the network disagreed with the actor and concluded that without him, The Big Bang Theory would have to end. Parsons' decision was revealed to the rest of the cast at Lorre's office, and by all accounts, they felt completely blindsided by the announcement. Years later, Galecki would reveal that he was upset by how the whole thing was handled and suggests that Parsons should have talked to the cast first and prepared them for his decision. But at the same time, it was Cuoco, who had assumed the meeting was about a forthcoming 13th season, that was the most affected. When she realized what was going on, the actress reportedly broke down in tears and even had trouble making eye contact with Parsons during the following day's script reading. She would later recall, "I couldn't breathe. It just felt like a death." The decision would cause friction between the 3 principal cast members during the final season, but as Cuoco would later admit, they all agreed that the show couldn't continue without Sheldon. Parsons, for his part, would continue to stand by how he handled things, but time heals all wounds, and as far as we could tell, there are no hard feelings left between any of them today. After Big Bang, Parsons would get more time to spend with his family and branch out professionally. He would appear in movies like 2020's adaptation of The Boys in the Band, in 2022's Spoiler Alert, and return to the theater in 2024 Broadway productions of Mother Play and Our Town, as well as the 2022 off-Broadway revival of Terrence McNally's A Man of No Importance, and would even do more television, appearing in Netflix's 2020 series Hollywood, and of course, remaining involved with young Sheldon.
Are you writing your memoir or a fantasy novel?
For your information, the word memoir comes from memory, and these memories are mine.
Cuoco would go on to produce and star in The Flight Attendant, which would break the record for HBO Max's biggest debut of all time, and earn the actress her first Emmy nomination for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy. She has expressed unhappiness at the decision to end Big Bang with Penny becoming pregnant, but would ultimately come to see the conclusion of the series as a blessing. We're glad it worked out that way because messing with the chemistry of the cast of The Big Bang Theory would have been a huge mistake. All good things, even the most successful of sitcoms, need to come to an end. Fans may not like it and the cast and crew may not be on board, but sooner or later, it's gonna happen. So the best any show can hope for is to go out on its own terms, like Jim Parsons did.
Admit it, he's adopted. How can I be adopted when I have a twin sister? Think, monkey. Think.
That's enough. No one's adopted.
I wish I was.
That can still be arranged.
That was a clip from Young Sheldon, a spin-off of the mega hit CBS sitcom, The Big Bang Theory. Now, in today's world of reboots, remakes, and sequels, creating a successful spin-off to a beloved television show is incredibly difficult. And creating a spin-off that's even better than its beloved original is near to impossible, which is why we're amazed to say that, somehow, Young Sheldon might have actually figured it out.
Hello, Dr. Bowers. It's Sheldon Cooper. I need you to administer more anesthesia to me. No, I don't have a dental problem. I need to re-enter a trance-like state so I can communicate with Thoth, the god of knowledge.
Created by Chuck Lorre and Bill Prady, The Big Bang Theory debuted in September of 2007. The series followed a group of nerdy 20-something friends living in Pasadena, California, and at the center of that group was Sheldon Cooper, a Caltech theoretical physicist with a genius-level IQ, a razor-sharp wit, and a childish personality. Despite having something of a mean streak,
I'm Kid the geologist, of course, but it's only because I have no respect for the field.
Sheldon, as played by Jim Parsons, became a breakout character and a pop culture icon. His popularity with both fans and critics alike was one of the main reasons the series ran for an astounding 279 episodes over 12 seasons, winning 7 Emmys off 46 nominations. On the other hand, The Big Bang Theory wasn't exactly universally adored. The series was frequently called out for its often sexist and misogynistic humor, as well as its alienating habit of using the very same nerd culture it claimed to represent as the butt of most of its jokes. Nonetheless, as one of the most watched sitcoms of its day, Big Bang ultimately went out on top, only ending its run because Parsons had decided to move on rather than participate in a 13th season. He was not, however, moving far, at least not professionally speaking, because way back in November of 2016, CBS entered into negotiations to create a spin-off centered on a younger Sheldon Cooper. Initially pitched to Big Bang producers by Parsons himself, the series was officially ordered in March of 2017. It would debut the following September, running concurrently with the final 2 seasons of Big Bang, which served as something of a launchpad for the spinoff by occasionally featuring its cast in small guest roles that tied the two together.
If you're watching this, I assume something bad has happened. Something that's making you question everything.
I'm so smart.
Now, as we've discussed in the past, when it comes to creating a spin-off, there are 2 main options for creators to choose from. The first, and far more common, is to create a lightly veiled clone. This kind of spin-off is the same type of show as its progenitor, but may have a slightly different angle, a mostly new cast, and be set in a different time or place. Examples include the NCIS franchise and Law & Order. The advantage to this model is obvious. If fans like the original, there's a good chance they'll like more of the same. That being said, the history of television is littered with the corpses of spin-offs that attempted to imitate the style and tone of their predecessors. Shows like Joey, That 80s Show, and How I Met Your Father, for example, just came off like cheap imitations of Friends, That 70s Show, and How I Met Your Mother, and none of them even came close to duplicating the success of their respective originators. Which brings us to the other way to create a spin-off, which is to take an interesting character from the original and then build a completely different show around them. It's a risky approach because seeing a single original character they recognize isn't necessarily going to convince audiences to watch a series they might not otherwise get into. On the other hand, delivering fans a unique universe that still somehow feels like a part of what came before can sometimes sidestep their nostalgia for the original and save the spin-off from feeling like a disappointment. It's not a surefire road to success, but series that chose the latter route include some of the most successful spin-offs of all time, including shows like Frasier and Better Call Saul. And perhaps because Big Bang was still making new episodes at the time and didn't necessarily want to compete with a clone show, that's the route producers took with Young Sheldon. In fact, what they delivered was so different that if you didn't know it going in, you probably wouldn't realize it was a prequel to The Big Bang Theory.
Per the student dress and grooming code, this boy is wearing sports attire outside of a designated area, and this girl's blouse is diaphanous, which means I can see her brassiere.
Co-created by Laurie and Stephen Malero, Young Sheldon follows the titular child prodigy as he grows up with his family in East Texas during the late 1980s. That family includes Sheldon's fiercely protective and devoutly religious mother, Mary, his good-hearted but slightly meat-headed football coach father, George, his underachieving older brother, Georgie, his smart-mouthed twin sister, Missy, and his sarcastic maternal grandmother, who Sheldon famously calls Meemaw. Largely embraced by critics and fans, Young Sheldon would run for 141 episodes over 7 seasons. And in an age where most series are lucky to make it through even a couple of 8-episode seasons, that makes it an unqualified success. So it's hard not to wonder, what went right? Well, for starters, Young Sheldon was a very different show than its predecessor. Stylistically, Big Bang was a multicam sitcom with a laugh track, whereas Young Sheldon used a single cam format and no laugh track. And structurally, Young Sheldon's stories were knit together by the voice of the adult Sheldon in an omniscient narrator role, which the original series lacked.
In any real-life crisis, my family's default mode is mindless panic.
Someone's gonna die! Someone's gonna die!
Or heartless apathy.
Oh my Lord!
Giving the spin-off a totally different look and feel was probably partially a reaction to changing trends in sitcoms, but right off the bat, it somehow made the Big Bang universe feel bigger. Similarly, Big Bang, like Friends or How I Met Your Mother, was part of a genre of sitcoms which focused on the romantic relationships and professional lives of young urban adults. In stark contrast, its rurally set spin-off was a family show centered on a child. In that way, it was much more like The Wonder Years or Malcolm in the Middle, both of which were clearly huge influences. Young Sheldon also had both great characters and great casting. Sheldon himself is played by Ian Armitage of the hit HBO series Big Little Lies, who was only 9 years old when Young Sheldon debuted. Recasting an iconic character, even at a different age, always risks alienating a pre-existing fan base, but to say Armitage was perfect for his role would be underselling it. Supported by Parsons' voiceovers as the adult Sheldon, the two seamlessly combined into a fuller version of the character than was ever depicted on Big Bang. The same could be said for Sheldon's family members. Save for George Sr., who died before the events depicted in the original series, they're all characters who had appeared on Big Bang to some extent, but recast for the spin-off with younger actors, they're each granted new depth and breadth, far beyond what any of them had in the original show. The effect is especially compelling in the case of Sheldon's mother, Mary, who is played by Zoe Perry, the real-life daughter of actress Laurie Metcalf, who played Mary on the original series. On Young Sheldon, the Coopers are depicted as a very relatable, very average family, doing their best to cope with a bizarre boy genius in their lives. They couldn't be less similar to Sheldon's supporting cast from Big Bang, so they provide him a wildly different dynamic in which to exist and function. That drastic change in situations opens the door to a world of completely new stories about the character, which complement, rather than step on or needlessly drag out, what fans had seen on the original show.
Glad you enjoyed it.
So, Sheldon, what did you think of your first theoretical physics class?
I think I'm gonna do this for the rest of my life.
Good choice.
For example, Season 2, Episode 22, A Swedish Science Thing and the Equation for TOAs. This emotionally difficult episode finds Mary worried about what will happen when no one shows up to the Nobel Prize party Sheldon invited the whole school to.
This Wednesday morning, the Nobel Prize in Physics will be announced, and I'd like to invite each and every one of you to my garage to listen live at 5 a.m. and be a part of scientific history.
And then picking up the pieces when no one comes and Sheldon's hero doesn't even win. It's a heartbreaking episode episode that turns hopeful when it offers glimpses of the young versions of Sheldon's future friends from Big Bang. Perhaps most importantly of all, the change in story worlds comes with a major change in tone. Young Sheldon's gentle and sincere comedic sensibilities are in many ways the antithesis of Big Bang's crass, edgy, and occasionally offensive sense of humor. In fact, it's probably not unfair to say that Young Sheldon might even be the kind of series that could easily appeal to people who hated Big Bang, which is all to say, it was a show that stood on its own and you didn't need to appreciate or even see Big Bang to understand what it brought to the table. And maybe that's why Young Sheldon lasted as long as it did and now has a spin-off of its own. Georgie and Mandy's first marriage debuted on October of 2024 and focuses on the married life of Sheldon's older brother Georgie. Other characters from Young Sheldon have dropped in as guest stars, but otherwise, the new spin-off is as different from Young Sheldon as Young Sheldon was from The Big Bang Theory. Going back to the multicam format and adding a laugh track, Georgie and Mandy is, in many ways, more similar to The Big Bang than it is to its direct predecessor. As of this writing, it only has one season under its belt, but so far, it seems like a success, having garnered mostly positive reviews and decent ratings. Only time will tell if Chuck Lorre and his team will be able to strike gold a third time and go on another multi-season run, but their track record so far leads us to believe that if there's a science to making spin-offs, they might be the geniuses who figured it out.